I think it's actually working, Aaron. Um,
Right.
okay, so I want to say a prayer, and then this is Aaron Wright. He is the executive director of Bishop's Ranch, one of our diocesan institutions. And I'm really, really glad you're here. So thank you for coming. Let me see if I can say hi to you. I'm really glad you're here. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So what we're going to do is let you take it away, and then when there's time for questions or whatever, just let us know. John Hager, can you make sure he can share screen at some point, maybe? And if not, I'll come back there and help you out. Because I know you have some share screen stuff you want to do. When we get there, just maybe help us out as we stumble through it boldly into the future. So let's pray. God, I thank you for this time, this holy time in Lent. We are grateful to Aaron, and may his words be filled with your spirit. In Christ's name I pray. Amen. Take it away.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to be here, or be with you virtually at least. As Todd said, I'm the executive director of the Bishop's Ranch. I know many of you have visited the Bishop's Ranch. Maybe I can see your hands if you raise them and say you've been to the ranch before. Yeah, great, great. Well, I want to share just a little bit about the ranch, and then I've been asked to talk about the power of retreat and silence and those practices as part of Lent, but just as part of life. So I'll go ahead and share screen now, just so you're looking at something more beautiful than me. This is the view from right next to the chapel at the Bishop's Ranch. As Todd mentioned, we're one of the diocesan retreat centers. There are three of us: St. Columba's, St. Dorothy's, and Bishop's Ranch. Bishop's Ranch is just outside of Healdsburg, California. This is overlooking the Russian River Valley. We have 365 acres, hiking trails, mostly oak woodlands, and we host retreats year-round, mostly group retreats. And we see about 5,000 to 6,000 guests every year who come to the Bishop's Ranch for some time away. I know St. Timothy's, many of you have supported the ranch. Thank you for that. Many of you have visited the ranch. Thank you for that. All of you hopefully pray for the ranch. Thank you for that as well. It's such a privilege and honor to get to serve as the executive director here. But today I'm going to talk about retreat and how my experience of retreat is that it's like a homecoming, coming home to ourselves, coming home to God, coming home to a deeper understanding of our lives. And so I wanted to bring you to the ranch a little bit. I have a video that we put together for an event that we did right before Christmas. So forgive me for bringing a Christmas tree to the first Sunday of Lent, but hopefully the ranch cats who are also featured in the video will make up for it. So. Well, hopefully, if you've been to the ranch, you recognize some of those scenes. Our two feline friends came to us after the dairy next door closed, and a lot of the staff moved away. So we have Mango and Sweet Onion, who have taken up residence at the ranch and are guest favorites. Um, so just quickly wanted to share what the Bishop's Ranch is all about. We're a ministry of the diocese, and our mission is to share this place of rare beauty through hospitality that nourishes spirit, body, and mind. And our vision is that it will be a place where lives are changed. And my premise is that retreat does change lives. It's, as I said, it's a homecoming. And I want to talk a little bit. I'm going to stop my share here now. Um, I want to talk a little bit about how I came to the ranch because retreat played a huge role, and the practice of retreat and the practice of silence played a huge role in my life and still does for the last several decades. And I just want to share a little bit of my experience and practice, and maybe that will encourage some of your practice. So, how I got to a place of retreat. Um, I was in my late 20s. I was working full time. I also had two small businesses, and I had was about to have our first son. We were in the process to adopt, and I got invited first on a team retreat and went away on that. And that was a new experience for me, just having time set apart for that type of thing. And then was challenged to go on a silent retreat. At the time, I was living in the Midwest in Southern Ohio, where I spent a good part of my life and grew up there. And silence was not something that I practiced. Retreat was not something that I practiced. I was constantly in motion, constantly busy, huge extrovert, working all the time and playing when I wasn't working. And so the idea of going away and spending time in quiet was not on my radar. It was quite confronting. But I signed up and I went to a place called the Abbey of Gethsemane. Some of you may know it's most famous for being the place where Thomas Merton went and became a monk and spent the most of his life in silence there in the Trappist tradition. And they have a retreat house in central Kentucky, right on the bluegrass, right off the Bluegrass Highway there, where they practice silence and prayer 7 times a day. So I got myself a monk cell and spent a week in silence. And the first time I did it, it was absolutely confronting. It was no cell phone, no busyness, no people, no talking, just me and my thoughts and some books. And thankfully, they have hundreds of acres of land where I spent a lot of time walking and thinking and praying in silence. It seemed so radical the first time that I went. Uh, and then after I went, it seemed so essential to the rest of my life. It became an annual practice for me once a year to go and be away in silent retreat for a week. It was a place where I got quiet, where I went through kind of the detox of my life and all my distractions that happens. And it was a place where I really did feel like I came home to myself and I came home to God. I got to ask big questions like, who am I? And then what became one of my favorite questions, what's my next faithful step? Like, where am I going? What am I doing? And I would spend just some practical time, sometimes reading. I would often cover my wall in post-its that represented events from the previous year that felt significant, just to kind of take a look at my life and how I was spending my time and what I was noticing. And so that became my practice. And I did that for the better part of 15 years before moving to California. And it was in those times of retreat that I really discerned that this was something I wanted to do for others and something that I wanted to provide. And it really worked itself, aside from that annual time of retreat, into the rest of my life and my practices. I was much more comfortable spending time in silence. Again, it felt no longer so confronting, but required to do my life. And so I started spending time daily in silence and prayer and journaling and all of that. And that's what began to really fuel my life, help my life take shape, help me be really clear about who I was and what I was bringing to the world. So that was my experience. And I thought I would share today. I'm going to not just share my thoughts, but I've got a few people who've helped me in my times of retreat, some authors that you'll recognize. But I thought I would start with Thomas Merton, since I referenced him and his retreat center, which meant so much to me. And this is one of his quotes, which says, "The world of men has forgotten the joys of silence, the peace of solitude, which is necessary to some extent for the fullness of human living. Man cannot be happy for long unless he is in contact with the springs of spiritual life, which are hidden in the depths of his own soul. If man is exiled constantly from his own home, locked out of his spiritual solitude, he ceases to be a true person." So Thomas was famous for many things. Many of you probably read some of his writing, and one of the things that struck me so much is he spent all this time in silence, and then he has this famous quote about being in downtown, I believe Louisville, which is about an hour and a half from the monastery, and having this great experience with all of the world and the noise and bustle of that. But because of his silence, it was possible for him to, because of his practice of silence, it was possible for him to truly be present there. So, one of the things that I want to just acknowledge is how confronting silence and retreat is in our day to day. Some of us find time for vacation. I'm a big proponent of vacation. Some of us find some downtime. Some of us find ways to turn off our cell phones. But it seems more and more essential to me in our just busy lives where we're constantly connected. My phone's right here, but it's on do not disturb at the moment, which would have seemed radical to me as well before practices of retreat and silence. And I want to say that it may sound like a luxury to take a retreat or to spend that time away. But I'd love to flip that for you and say that it's a gift that you can give yourself. If you have a partner or someone you share a household with and responsibilities with, it's a gift you can give to each other. I had two little kids when I started this, when I was in the first few years of this practice. And my partner at the time and I figured out a way to give each other this space. It was a lot. We had a lot going on in our lives, but we both began to see the power of how we came back to our lives after retreat in a more powerful way. And so it's not always a going away in complete silence. If you come to the ranch, you'll certainly experience quiet because we have so much space in nature and have built quiet into the space. But oftentimes you're here with 60, 70, 80 other people. And so it's really the practice of stillness and silence and things that may seem radical at first, but become more essential as you practice them. So I do want to say a couple other things about it. I've said that I think retreat is about coming home to ourselves, who you are, where you're going. As we enter this season of Lent, we read all about Jesus spending the time in the desert to really be tested, to be tempted. And one of the consistent questions that we see that he gets asked in the desert is, if you are really the Son of God, if you are really the Son of God, then blank, 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 what fill in the blank of all of his tests and temptations. But they start with this question of, if you are really who you claim to be, right? It's very confronting to our identity and can be to spend this time in quiet and retreat. And that, I think, is exactly part of the purpose, to get really clear about coming home to who we are and being able to stand in that. And I think that silence and retreat is just one of the ways that we can begin to understand who we really are and who we are really meant to be. It's also, as I said, that coming home to God. It's the invitation to just spend time without distraction, without having to think about what am I going to make for dinner? Oh, I have to pick up the grandkids, or oh, I have to drive my kids to school, or oh, I have to go to work. It's just that time where those distractions of life get minimized so that we can be more present to ourselves and to God. I want to also share that I think it's coming home to ourselves. I think it's coming home to God. And I think it's also coming home better, just practically. I've referenced that a little bit. But one of my other people that I've learned from on retreat, I'm going to quote now, because I think this speaks to that coming home better. Um, Here we go. James Baldwin said, throw everything out of your mind, read a little, sleep. The world will still be here when you wake up, and there'll still be everything left to do. Retreat doesn't make all of the projects and busyness go away. I do think it gives you strength to engage them with some refreshment, with some new energy, with some new perspective. And I don't think as well that it has to be a full week. That may not be practical for where you are today. I try to build in some form of retreat daily. I try to build in time away and time off, at least for a hike in the woods or something weekly or monthly. And then annually, I really do try to get a way for more quiet and prolonged retreat. But sometimes all you get to do is take a few deep breaths, and that's worth it too, to just be still for a few moments, set the phone down, take a few deep breaths. And my third person that I've learned a lot from, her famous quote is, almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you. Um, so that's Anne Lamott. I love that one because it just speaks to, I did that this morning. My computer wasn't connecting to the internet. Unplug it, plug it back in. It works magically. So even you. So I do just want to share a couple more practical resources. If you are interested in exploring retreat, it doesn't have to be with us for certain. We have a wealth of resources here in the Diocese of California for retreat. St. Columba's in Inverness is really focusing a lot now on very small, contemplative, quiet retreats, 1, 2, 3 people, and just beautiful things. So I was just on their website this morning, and they've got all the ways to come there if you're looking for an individual retreat. St. Dorothy's as well. They just hosted their writers and authors retreat this weekend. The ranch has Scottish fiddlers on the property this weekend. But if you are looking for that sense of retreat, you can find it. You can find it in any of 3 of the diocesan entities, or I'm sure many resources around you. One of the ranch, as you know or may know, is really focused a lot on group retreats. We host parish retreats, vestry retreats, quilt retreats, community groups, all shapes and sizes. But one of the ways you can come as an individual that I'll just share quickly is through our programs. And if you come on our website, there is a little programs tab or here. And if you click down, you'll get to this site and it shows upcoming programs. So we have a contemplative wilderness walking retreat coming up. We have a spring wildflower hike, and then we have a Holy Week, Holy Women program coming up that you can register as an individual for. And then when we have space, we also open up to individual retreats. So that would be found here on our site. And we have one coming up next weekend that I think is full, but more will be posted very soon. So I encourage you, again, give this gift to yourself, coming home to yourself through the power of retreat and silence. So I think that's all I have to share, but I'm happy to take questions if there are any.
Thank you, Aaron. So what we're going to do is pass the talking stick around. I'm going to stand up here like an idiot, and just if you want to ask a question about silence, about retreat, or whatever strikes you. I mean, I think he's pretty easygoing guy. He can take whatever question you got.
Can you explain more about the daily lack of business in a silent retreat? You wake up, does the bell ring, and you go to breakfast? How does that work? And what if you need something in your room and you must request it in some way?
That's a great question. Here at the ranch, when we do a couple quiet or silent retreats a year, One in Advent, especially, has been a longstanding quiet retreat that we do. And even in that, we have staff on site if there are things you need. But we ring bells for meals, we ring bells for prayers. And so that's the ranch experience. But my experience at the monastery, at the Abbey of Gethsemane, with the Trappist monks, is they live by that rule of life and the schedule, and those bells ring. They start at 2:30 in the morning to wake you up, to call you to the first prayer of the day. They pray 7 times a day, all the way to Compline. They ring a bell for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that, when you check in, there's someone there who's talking to you and telling you where to go. But after that, you really just live by the bells and the little schedule that they give you. So that's been my experience with that level of silent retreat, as you're kind of self-guided. Now, there are phones and landlines and emergencies, all that stuff in place, but yeah.
Aaron, I wonder if you could talk more about, you talked about your personal experience. You talked about like ways of creating silence on a small basis. Do you have any more practical stuff about maybe the 2 minute meditation retreats? Maybe I'm speaking for myself more than anybody else, but the chances of carving out, a week is almost nil unless it's for work or for family.
Yes.
So how, not just your own experience, but how have you seen people that can create those like mini retreats, those mini pauses, those silences that they can incorporate throughout their day?
Yeah, I've seen people do many things. I'll share a few resources that I've experimented with, and I know others have as well. One is just, if you have any view on nature, I think that's probably the best thing. Even if you have a bird feeder, I was just looking out my kitchen window this morning, and there was a woodpecker, like, just going away at this little tree that's outside of my kitchen window. And I was busy cooking and whatever, and I thought, no, I'm going to stop here and just marvel at this woodpecker for 30 to 45 seconds. I think it's like as small as that practice of noticing and choosing to slow down and be in that moment. I still finished making breakfast. I still got everything done, but I gave myself that. It may have only been 30 seconds before it flew away, but that was a conscious choice. So as small as that, I think deep breath, like just taking, I do this with my 10-year-old when he's gets anxious, just, okay, we're going to take 3 deep breaths and just be right here, right now. So I think those are like the smallest versions I can think of. 2 minutes, I know a lot of folks use YouTube. There's tons of just quick guided. Sometimes I need a guide because I can't do it on my own, just to get into a quiet meditative space. Like, and they're just telling you to take a few breaths and then, leading you through, and they have all different links of that. So that, and then the biggest thing for me, honestly, still is motion. Like, I do best if I'm walking. So if I'm looking for a retreat, I look for a place where I can walk. It takes kind of that rhythmic moving for me too. So here at the ranch, I if I'm stuck in Zoom meetings all day, which is often what I do here, between those, I'll get up and just take a quick loop, like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes of walking. Right before I got on with you all, I went out and just walked for 1 minute because I need to just get present and be in that space. So I don't know if that's helpful, but those are some examples of just consciously choosing, okay, I'm going to be present in this moment now. So.
Anybody else? Barbara, let me bring the talking stick to you.
So I think I understand that we could arrange for individual retreats, especially weekdays, because most of your groups are weekends. Is that correct?
You can. We do open, like I was showing on the site. We do open if we have weekends where we have groups here, but not all of our rooms are sold. We'll open up individual retreats that way. So you can always check. Easiest thing is reservations@bishopsranch.org. Just shoot an email to us, or check the website. But yeah, we open to individuals when we have space.
So so if someone wanted to come on a Tuesday and stay Tuesday to Thursday and have an individual, private, or quiet retreat, is that a possibility?
That is a possibility. Especially, we would try to pair it with a time that we have a group on site, just so there's food for you, basically, so that we have meals going. So sometimes it just depends on that. So we line up with when our kitchen is open, just so you get to eat delicious ranch food while you're here too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I'm walking over, Aaron. Give me a second.
Are you open to all denominations?
We are. We are open to all denominations, all faiths, and people of no faith. We have a growing portion of our groups are community groups and nonprofit groups, arts groups. We are hosting a variety of churches. We host an international Sufi group twice a year. So yeah, everyone is welcome.
What is your charge for per day for a retreat?
So that it depends on the retreat or experience. A lot of our guided retreats, the facilitators will charge a fee on top of our just lodging and meal charge. But for example, just the weekend retreat that we're doing this coming weekend that's already sold out is 2 nights and 5 weekends for two nights and 5 meals, not 5 weekends. So 5 full meals was posted for $550 up here. So that, and then you can add people to that as well for not the full $550 again. It's just basically a meal charge on top of that. So if you're coming with someone else, you can essentially add some meals to that and split the cost.
In the silent retreats that I've been on, the most surprising was the 2:30 in the morning and getting up with the bells. And the reason it's been surprising is because it has deeply affected my life, that when I'm awake at night, I know that there are people praying, and that's been really powerful to me. Is there a time in silence, a time of the day that has been powerful for you?
Yeah, I actually, when you said, I got chills when you were talking about that, because that was a powerful realization for me too. Only one, because of time zones. You know, there are people who are doing, praying the hours basically all over the world. And that quiet of the middle of the night for me, I spent years not setting an alarm, but I would just wake up at 2:30 in the morning and couldn't go back to sleep. It seemed like it was always 2:30 in the morning. And so sometimes I would just fight it until I would go back to sleep. And then I started just getting up, and I had a little chair and reading area, and that's when I would sit and I would journal, and I'd do about an hour of that, and then I would go back to sleep. So I don't do that now, but that quiet time that you're mentioning in the middle of the night was very, very powerful for me for many years. So, yeah.
Just to share, recently our church hosted winter nights, and the meal that we had for our dessert was a recipe from Bishop Ranch. It was a pear cake. And I'm so pleased we made a lot because we got to take some home, and it was very tasty.
Yeah. You said the pear cake, was that the one?
Yeah, the pear cake.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a really good one. Yeah. Our kitchen team is I can't even say enough about them. They're so good, and they do such creative work. Like, I've been to a lot of Episcopal campus conference centers, and and prior to me, the food at the Bishop's Ranch was great. I take no credit for it, but it's just known to have the best food of all. So yeah, it was just I'm very proud of our team.
Yes, I've been in a lot of retreats all over the country, and Bishop's Ranch is probably one of the best
Yeah.
as far as food. Many other things, but particularly food.
Yeah, yeah, and that's one of the things that we really invested too. That's our biggest team. We have executive chef, a sous chef, with four now full-time lead cooks, and a bunch of part-time people that they make everything from scratch. They're almost everything from scratch, and just really try to do healthy, nourishing meals. So I'm very proud of them.
I remember in past retreats that I attended there at Bishop's Ranch, there was a labyrinth. Do you still have it?
We do. It's right out. It's actually right through my door out of my office here. It's right in front of the ranch house, and the youth of St. John's Oakland at the time helped put that in. I can't remember the date of it, but it's been there a little while. But people use that all the time. That's a great practice, again, just to get that kind of rhythmic walking and get out of your head. And it doesn't take that long, but it's a great practice.
Anybody else? Well, Aaron, I've been thinking about what you've been saying, and one thing I want to. Oh yeah. It's on. You're on.
I'm on. I happen to be in charge of women's retreats for a period of time at at St. Timothy's, and whatever. And I'd like to know, just for information, how. I recall that it takes at least a year to get reservations in for a retreat. Is that still so?
We have some. It depends on the time of year. Coming out of the pandemic, we do have a little bit more opening on the calendar than we've had prior to the pandemic. So definitely reach out. We are booking. We have some openings still in 2024, and we are starting the booking process for groups for 2025. So we do work at least a year in advance, but there's often space to fill in, especially if it's a smaller group. We can often fit it in with someone else that's here that's taking some of the other spaces. So yeah, reach out. We'd love to have you. And depending on the size, I'm sure we could find a time for you. Yeah. I'll tell you, the weekend that we can, nobody wants to come the first weekend of December. So if you want to go, if you want to come the first weekend of December, that seems to be the least popular weekend of the year. So, but we could definitely host you.
I think people agree
for
with
good
you.
reason. I can see why. Yeah, everyone gets busy between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Well, we also have a few people tuned in on YouTube, but we've been checking the chat, and I don't see any questions at this point. So I might yammer, there's a delay, so I might yammer a few seconds and see if there's anything that comes in from YouTube. But I think we're getting close to wrapping up. Is there any sort of final thoughts or questions that you want to share?
Is that to me? or
No,
two?
I'm checking with everybody.
Okay.
I think the question's more for Todd. I don't recall there being a women's retreat in quite a long time. Is there someone who facilitates that, a position such as Patty held at one time?
Oh, lovely. We don't currently have a women's retreat leader per se, but I would be more than open to exploring that with you all, and helping facilitate that and being part of that if you want me. But it's a women's retreat, so yeah, it might be Susan. Yeah, so we don't currently have a leadership in that area, but I'm very, very open to spirituality of any group, not just women, men's groups, women's groups, Stephen's ministry groups, whatever supports this community, we're down for. John, is there any final chat people? Nobody chat at home? Okay.
I just want to say thank you for continuing to pray, because one of the things that I believe is that the prayerful presence of the ranch and the people that are praying in the chapel are prayers for us all, and that when we get too busy, sometimes we can pause and remember that others are praying, and it makes us pause too. So thank you very much.
You're so welcome. I do want to say thanks to, we have a prayer resident program that's a volunteer program. People come and serve for a month at a time, usually live at the ranch, and they lead morning and evening prayer in the chapel Tuesday through Saturday. And they hold that space for anybody who's on site, but oftentimes they're praying for the staff, for the diocese, for anyone that has let us know that they need prayer. So we do feel really strongly about staying and part of that worldwide, cycle of prayer. And that's one of the ways that we do it here at the ranch. And that's something, that program fills really quickly, but that's something that if you're interested, it's a way to spend a longer time at the ranch. You volunteer and we house you and feed you and you pray. It's a great thing to do. It's a bit of a time commitment because it's usually a month at a time. But that's one way to come to the ranch. Another way that you can come and for free and volunteer is to be a volunteer host. We train hosts who are kind of our front line at meals and to welcome guests and all of that. And then people come and serve for a weekend or during the week. And so you can check that out as well. But that's another way to come and spend time at the ranch outside of, booking a retreat. So
That's great.
we'd love to have you. We'd love to have you. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, I think we're ready to close. One last, going once, going twice. All right. Well, Aaron, thank you so much for showing up, and thank you for helping us figure out all the technology and showing up with your Zoom session. I really, really appreciate that. We're really grateful to you for your time, for offering what Bishop's Ranch showing us what Bishop's Ranch has to offer. And I hope you have a great day and some silence in your day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, have a good day. Thank you so much.